wanted to welcome you back to our next unit. We're going to be talking this time about how to form your target market. That's the people or group business that's most likely to use your product. Sometimes it's very easy for people to say, well, I have a product that everybody uses, and so my target market is everybody. But we have to remember that even if the product is very similar and something that people even use the same way, they're not always going to want the same thing. It may sound a little funny, but one of the best examples is toilet paper, a product that everybody uses. But because we all have different needs and wants, we like fragrant toilet paper or non-fragrant. There are rows and rows of toilet paper in stores instead of just one basic kind. Even if your target market is business, if you happen to be selling toilet paper to an institution or a government, the kind of toilet paper they're going to buy is going to be very different from what a household might buy. So as we use that example, we can expound it to other things, and we're going to be looking at how we can target our market to find the people who are most likely to buy and use our product. And the best way is to understand how they are and who they are. That's one of the things we learned in the last couple of units back when we were talking about consumer behavior, the way people buy and use products. One of the things that people forget also is even if they have a very finely defined target market, it does nobody any good if it isn't substantial and big. So there are 4 characteristics that your target market needs to know to be, and when you're doing your project you need to remember these and tell us how your target market meets these 4 qualifications. The first is it needs to be sustainable. It needs to be large enough either in the number of people or the amount of money to be big enough to make it worth your marketing efforts. So if you sell something that's really inexpensive, say a ballpoint pen, you're going to have to have a lot of people buying that product before you can actually make enough money to be sustainable. At the same time, if you sell something that's really expensive, you won't have to sell quite as many of them to make a profit. Second, your target market needs to be identifiable and measurable. You need to be able to find who these people are and how many of them are there. This is one of the reasons I wanted you to look at the American Fact Finder and the Census Bureau, because using this tool you can look at an area and find out how many of your target market there might be. For instance, if you're trying to have a product that would be ideal for African American women between 18 and about 35 living in McLennan County, you have a tool at your resource in that Census Bureau to find out very easily, without much research, how many of those particular kinds of people there are. And knowing that, then you have an idea would this be worth it to do local, or can I expand it to a larger area? Next, it has to be accessible. One of the reasons that Scooter Store initially failed was because their primary marketing was signs on interstates directing people to a store on the frontage roads. But what the person who founded Scooter Store originally failed to realize is those people needed scooters because they were immobile. They had trouble getting out of their house because of a disability or because of illness. Once he realized that and thought it through and started advertising on daytime TV, his sales soared because he went to exactly where his primary target was. They were sitting at home wishing they could get out and do things, but they couldn't because of illness, and the Scooter Store gave them that freedom. He paired those advertisements with a series of phone-in, toll-free calls, and his sales went through the roof. So they need to be accessible. Finally, a market needs to be responsive, and the Scooter Store knew that something had to change. Either there was something wrong with his market or there was something wrong with his marketing efforts when people did not respond to him. So then, knowing that, you start looking at several variables: geographic, demographic, what we are, who we are; psychographic, which is sort of personalities and and lifestyles and the way we live. We also segment by benefits. Who is benefiting from this? For instance, a lot of cars advertise based on a benefit of safety. There's a Subaru commercial out that has a little girl, a tiny little girl, about 5 or 6, in a car, and her father is talking to her about being careful, and then he blinks and she's 17 or 18. And it's really stressing how much you love your family and you're concerned about their safety. Another way is usage. We like to talk about an 80-20 rule. It's pretty common in marketing and anything else that 80% of the work or 80% of the product is bought by about 20% of the people. And so we want to find that group that buys that 80%. One last thing we want to talk about is the different strategies: an undifferentiated, concentrated, and multi-segment. If you use an undifferentiated marketing strategy, you are hitting everybody, sort of like shooting a shotgun to get to people. Multi-segment is looking at one or two